Oh, yeah, I'm recording this session now. Okay. So today, the idea is that we're going to describe a little bit more in detail about my job, right? I know that most of you just graduated from school, but you already told me that you have in mind one career, no? So, for example, some of you want to be a doctor, other want to be a veterinarian, other want to be a business manager. I don't remember, but then you have in your head different professions, no? John, what is your job? What do you do for a living, my friend?
Hello, teacher. I'm an assistant pastoral
Payroll assistant.
or pastoral assistant, yeah.
Okay, okay, very good, excellent. So in that case, that what is the exact word? Pastoral, like this, or payroll?
Pastoral, like
Pastoral. Okay.
pastoral
Sorry.
assistance, like un asistente
Pastoral.
pastoral.
Yes. Pastoral assistant. Good. Okay. Understood. Payroll. Good. Okay. Very good. So you work for a church?
Yeah, I work for a church, yeah.
Okay. Great. Excellent. Very good. Okay, my friend. So in that case, the idea is that we're going to describe a little bit what those jobs are about. Yeah. How can we do that? We're going to have one specific resource, which is called relative clauses. Ready? The relative clauses basically are going to be words with like this, like, who, which, where, or when, that we use for describing different things, right? So, for example, in the case that we're describing a profession, well, we're talking about people, so probably we're going to use the relative clause who. Yes. And this is something that we have done before. For example, I am a person who likes blah, blah, blah. I am a person who prefers blah, blah, blah. We did that at the beginning of the level, right? And also we talk about or we use the relative clause when we said I don't like it when, or I like it when. And we did it in a simple way. I don't know if you remember, but we did it using a defining clause. A defining clause is simply a clause that defines the subject. Yeah. So the subject, it might be, for example, veterinarians.
Oh my God.
Veterinarians. And veterinarians, that it's the profession that Paula wanna it's Paula, yes. Paula, you wanna be a veterinarian, yes.
I'm not sure.
Oh my God, who
I
was
just want to get a bilingual job.
I just wanna get a bilingual job. So I think that there was another person. Emily, was you?
No, teacher.
Well, that didn't matter. Anyway, somebody wanted to be a veterinarian, right? That is the subject. When I have a defining clause, it's because I am defining who the subject is. So veterinarians, what is that? It's a profession, right? All veterinarians are people. So usually in the first sentence, in the first clause, we're going to have a sentence with verb to be, because of course the verb to be, it's a verb that defines what is the person or what is that subject, right? So I can say, for example, that veterinarians are professionals, right? Are professionals. Yes. Then we have the relative clause. As we are talking about people, the relative clause is going to be, of course, who, but it can be which, or it can be where, or it can be when, depending if we are talking about people, places, or moments, or whatever, right? So in that case, veterinarians are professionals who, yes. And then in the second sentence, I am going to describe, or I'm going to give the information that I really want to give. In this case, what is the information that I want to give? I want to say that the veterinarians help animals, right? So in that case, I said that veterinarians are professionals who help animals. Yeah, it's a defining clause. I am defining who are, who are the veterinarians, right? I'm defining.
Oh my God.
And it's easy with an easy job like veterinarians. But what about if we have something that is not so common, such as pastoral assist? Pastoral assist.
Good.
I wouldn't know how to describe that profession because I'm not sure what the pastoral assistant does, right? So in that case, what do you think? Who is a pastoral assistant? Mr. John, what do you think? Can you describe your job description?
Yes, sir. Well, pastoral assistant is one who assist the pastor in things relating
Yes.
to take care take care of people, take care of the people that go to the church, preach and Sunday preachings, help with different ministries we have as young ministry, teenagers ministry, yeah, something like that.
Okay, very good. So, well, basically what he said is that a pastoral assistant is, and you got the verb to be because he's defining, right? So, pastoral assistant is someone, and then after that, he gave all the description of his functions, right? So, pastoral assistant is someone who helps the pastor with this, with that, with the ministries, with Sunday churches, and all of that, right? So, in that case, that's using a defining clause in order to describe what that job is, right? Very good. Easy when we're talking about like a profession, right? But we can use it for other different things, no? Like for example, personality traits, like for example, family relationships, no? Like for example, I don't know. Do you know what a brother-in-law is?
Hiring. It's hiring.
What is
Creo que es cuñado, ¿no?
okay, so describe it. You define it using the relative clause. Brother-in-law what?
Some people who don't understand anything, anything at all. But you understood that 50% of it.
Teacher, a brother-in-law is one who is the
Uncomfortable.
brother of
When you didn't
your
understand, did you feel uncomfortable?
wife or girlfriend. I don't know, maybe.
Well, there are two different kinds of brother-in-law because it can be the brother of my wife, but it can be also on the other way, no? So
Yes,
that
yes.
yeah. So in that case, a brother-in-law is someone who, for example, is married to whom? To my sister, right? So that is also the definition of a brother-in-law. So in that case, what I'm doing, it's just simply defining the subject, right? So it's an easy way. However, the idea or the structure of this clause is simply using the subject, the first clause, of course, using the verb to be then here, and then using the relative clause in the middle, right? So, and after that, the main clause, which is the real information that I want to say, right? It's just that subject, first sentence, relative clause, second sentence. Easy, right? That kind of clauses, we're going to use it for giving essential information about the subject when I met the subject for the first time. So if I say a brother-in-law, I have never listened that word in my life. Okay. So in that case, I can use a relative clause for talking about what is that? Yes, because I have never listened about that term before. So I'm going to introduce it for the first time, right? It's a new subject, right? For example, I'm going to introduce, let's say, I don't know, Anna. Yes. Do you know Anna? Have you ever listened about Anna? No, it's a new person from you. So as it is the first time, I'm going to introduce, right? How am I going to introduce it? Anna is one of my closest friends. Because so far you have never listened about Anna. It's the first time that you listen about. So in that case, I use the defining clause. Anna is one of my closest friends who, and then what I really want to say is that Anna is one of my closest friends who studies engineering, for example. I don't know. Engineering, right? So in that case, the first part, it's defining because you have never met Anna before. So that's why I'm defining the subject. Okay? More or less, kind of. Yeah. Questions about it, difficulties on the structure?
Teacher, always we use the is
It might
or
be
are.
exactly,
Yeah.
but it can be with another different form of verb to be. For example, let's say lifeguards. Do you know what is a lifeguard?
como un salvavidas, ¿no? Sí.
Exactly. Yeah. So in that case, you could say that lifeguards, bueno, let's say they could be, right? So could be someone who is an, how do you say, a volunteer. Yeah. So in that case, I'm not using is or are, which are like defined, like determine, define, but could be, because in that case, it's not completely true, always true, right? It's a possibility. So it's not always is are, but it could be other, or you can use other different ways of verb to be. Could be, should be, might be, was, were, depends. But the definition it's there with the verb to be. Okay? Yep. Yes.
Yes. Also would be, should be. Yeah,
It's a possibility.
I see.
Yes.
I
Exactly.
see.
Great. So that's when you meet the person for the first time. What about if we are talking about a person or a subject that we had previously mentioned? What are we going to do in that case? We're going to use a non-defining clause, right? In this case, the clause or the sentence is not defining the person or the subject. It's just making like a clarity about it. It's just making a big parenthesis about that subject, right? So saying, for example, that a lawyer who works really, really hard earns good money, right? So not all the lawyers, especially the ones who work really hard. Yes. Or for example, a video game, it's more expensive. But what video game? Which is for adults. So in that case, I'm making like a big clarity about the subject. Yeah. Anyway, the real information, it's the last sentence. The last clause is going to be the real information, the one that I really want to express. What I do here in the middle is simply making a clarification about it. Like, okay, that subject with this particularity, and then the information at the end, right? For example, number 3, a party, it's more satisfying. But what party? A party where you can relax, right? So a party where you can relax is more satisfying, right? So in that case, I want to say something about the subject. The information is right here at the end. But in the middle, I need to make a like something that like clarifying some information about that subject. I can use this kind of clauses when I give non-essential information. It's something for making more clear who the subject is. But I already know the subject. It's just making like a differentiation of that subject. So in that case, when I give complementary information, usually it's when I have previously mentioned the subject. For example, Anna.
You have 10 days, like.
Do you remember who was Anna?
No, I
One
don't
of
remember.
your closest friend?
It was one of my closest friends that we mentioned in the previous example, right? And do you remember what I said about her? Do you remember what I said that she studied?
Share my screen with you.
No. Bueno, I said
Oh,
that
teacher, please remember.
I said that Anna, Anna was one of my closest friends who studied engineering. That was the example before. Yeah. The first time that I presented Anna, that I introduced Anna, right? So now that I want to bring Anna back, yes, I'm going to say that Anna, who I mentioned before, could be, right? Is really kind. What I wanted to say is that Anna is really kind. But for making more clear who Anna was, I have to make this differentiation or this clarification in the middle. Yeah. Bueno, maybe with this one, who I mentioned before. But I could say, for example, Anna, who is studying engineering, knows a lot about mathematics, for example. Anna, who is one of my closest friends, lives near to my house, for example, right? So in that case, that information that I am giving to complement the subject, it's in the middle. The non-defining clause is different from the defining clause because the structure that I use, it's different. I'm gonna use the subject first, and then I use a comma. Then I introduce the non-defining clause and I close it with another comma. So instead of using parentheses, I use commas, right? So the subject, the complementary information between two commas, and then at the end after that, the real main clause of the sentence, right? That it's the real idea of the story, right? So in that case, I have to use commas for locking, yes, the non-defining clause in the middle, okay? What do you think? Questions about it, difficulties about it, everything clear, not clear? How do you feel?
Yes, teacher, I have a question.
Yeah,
Two
Yeah.
questions, sorry.
that's
The
it.
first one, why we need to put a comma instead of do the whole sentence without commas?
No.
Okay, that is the
Why?
first question.
Yeah, that's the first question. And the second question, uh, how can I yeah, make a difference between who and that when I need to use it? You know, when I use who, when I use that. The in that related clause, I don't know
Okay, that's good.
exactly. Maybe I think is when we talk about a person, maybe, but I don't know in
Okay,
what other
good job, my
situation.
friend. Listo, very good. So, first question, why I have to separate it with commas? Because in this case, in the previous case, the element that was joining the two ideas was the relative clause. Ready? The relative clause in the previous way, in the defining clauses, it was the connector of the two ideas. Look that in the previous sentence, in the defining sentences, the connector, the clause, the relative clause was in the middle. So the relative clause was matching the two ideas. Why? Because the two ideas were completely related. This idea is completely related to the second, right? So in that case, it's all one big idea. But when we have non-defining clauses, it's not the way. That relative clause is not connecting this with that. No. In that case, that relative clause is introducing an information, but that information is extra. It is not related to this part. Yeah. It's simply for defining, sorry, for clarifying, for specifying a little bit more the subject. But it is not defining and it is not related to this information here. That is why I have to kind of separate that idea, yes, with commas, right? Because it's not part of their whole complete idea. It's a complement, yes? But if I retire, if I take it out, if I take the sentence out, it's not going to happen anything. If I say Anna is very kind, that's great. Yes, no problem. Yeah. I just want to give more information to be more specific. And I say Anna, who is close to me or who is one of my closest friends, is really kind. That's it. But that's it. That information in the middle, it's optional. On the other case, on the defining clause, it's not optional. It's necessary for the context of the idea. Okay, so that is why I have to use the commas for making that introduction there. Yes. And on the other case, that it's going to be the possible replacement of who or which. I can replace that when I use who or when I use which. Ready? But essentially, normally I use it for replacing it in informal context and when it's a defining clause. When it's a non-defining clause, normally I'm going to use the WH word. Yes? So, for example, I said streamer. That is a job. Can you tell me what is an streamer? Can you define what a streamer is?
Yes. And do you still have the sun?
This guy in front of a camera, I don't know, talking with other people, playing video games and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's a person because it can be a guy or it can be a girl. So a streamer is a person who
Half past eight.
is in front of a camera, transmitting information, playing video games, talking to other people, ta, 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 ta. That is a defining clause, of course. In that case, I can replace that who, and I can say, if it's more informal, I can say a streamer is a person that, right? And it's fine, no problem. Who can be replaced by that in the defining clause, right? Similar to which, of course, with which we use it for talking about objects or places. For example, sorry, I can say that, let's say, um, I don't know. Let's talk about PS5. What is a PS5? I don't know. I have seen this in different places, but I don't know what is a PS5.
They are different. Cardinal numbers are the
It's a video game that
numbers are different.
It's
yeah.
not a video game. The video games are the one that we play.
Sorry, it's
No, it's an
the
object.
machine. I don't know,
The
it's the
machine,
machine.
yes.
Is the machine is a console, ¿cierto? Very good. The defining thing is that the PS5 is a console. Ready? That's the thing. Of course, in this case, in this console, I can play a lot of different games. So wait, yes, I can say PS5, it's a console which is, I don't know, huge. Do you remember what is the meaning of huge, Paul?
Huge. No,
No?
not really.
Juanita, do you remember what is huge?
Like big,
Like
enormous.
really big.
Uh-huh.
Like really, really big, not like gigantic. So in that case, PS5 is a console which is huge. It's a defining clause. I am defining that the PS5 is a console, and I am saying the big characteristic is that it's huge. I can replace which for that. PS5 is a console that is huge, and it's great, no problem. Ready? Now, I am not going to be like, it could happen, but not usually, replacing who or that in a non-defining clause. So, for example, if I want to say that a streamer who is, let's say, famous, a streamer who is famous earns a lot. What is the meaning of earn? What is the verb earn?
Gonna.
Gana money. Yes, very good. So in that case, yeah, it can happen. I can say like a streamer that is famous earns a lot of money, but it's not really common. When I have a non-defining clause, it's probably more normal, more common to keep the WH word and not replacing for that, right? Then it can be a little bit confusing. So, but it normally is possible to replace it, especially when we have defining clauses, right? Not when we have non-defining clauses. Okay, my dear people, questions about it, or was it clear?
Thursday.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes?
Thursday.
That's what is an undefining last the last one? You use always who or which. When it's defined, we can use one another. Yeah.
Something that I forgot. When we have relative clauses such as where or when, they can be replaced by that. Only who and which. If I have a relative clause where, yes, it cannot be replaced, even if it's defining or not defining. For example, I'm gonna say, I don't know, let's say, Sopo. People who live in Bogota would know what is Sopo. Do you know what is Sopo? John, do you know what is Sopo?
No, that it's a new word for me.
It's a new word for you. But people who live in Bogota probably they know. Girls, do you know?
La changua, okay, no sé.
No.
So what do you think, girls? Do you know what is Sopo?
It's a place.
In a place, right?
Como
Sorry, Amy?
un municipio, como,
It's a
como
little
un
town.
pueblito.
Exactly, it's a little town. Muy bien. So is a town,
Ready?
right, near Bogota,
So.
where people practice extreme sports. Sorry, extreme sports, such as parachuting or parapente or a lot of different things, no? Entonces, but in that case, the relative clause, of course, is where. Yeah, that relative clause can be replaced by that. I cannot say Soplo is a place, is a town, that people. No, that's not possible. It's only possible when I have who or the or which, then it's possible to replace it with that. But with the other two, it's not possible to replace. Ready? So just for you to know. Listo, my dear people. So in that case, yes, we already have defining and not defining clauses. right? So
So,
you can talk about any kind of profession about it, right? So, for example, what about if I say, wait a second,
Thursday.
cardiologist. What is it? What is a cardiologist? What are the characteristics? What do you want to say about that job?
Remember on Saturday, like an hour.
Hair doctor.
Muy bien, Pau. So it's a doctor that takes care of the heart, ¿cierto? And how do you say all complete?
Saturday or.
A cardiologist is a person who takes care about the heart.
Very good. Who takes care of? Who takes care of the heart? Yes, perfect. Very good. Yes. Guys, and do you think that the cardiologists have a good salary or not?
Of course.
Very bonita, once again.
A cardiologist is a person who earns a lot of money.
Exactly. Yes, very good. So a cardiology, but I forgot what is a cardiology. A teacher, that is a person who takes care of the heart. Okay. So what I'm going to use here, it's two different informations. I said that a cardiologist who takes care of the heart. That information, it's simply for remembering who was a cardiologist. It's complementary. It's not what I want to say, but it was just for making clear that the other person understand what a cardiology is. Yes? In that case, cardiologist who takes, well, a cardiologist who takes care of the heart, non-defining clause, earns, as Juanita said, earns a lot of money. Earns, right? So in that case, this is a non-defining clause. The first one was a defining, the one that Paula did. A cardiologist is a person who takes care of the heart. Define. The other one, okay, a cardiologist who takes care of the heart, that is like a specific characteristic, earns a lot of money, right? So in that case, that's the difference between using a relative or non-relative, defining or not defining. Ready? Questions about the relative clauses, guys? Difficulties? Is it clear what's the difference? How to do it?
Okay. You usually eat and sleep all day. Eat and sleep, and that's it. Sunday,
Very
very
good.
good. Right. What? or
Okay,
which
my
day
dear people.
you
Paula, Tini, of course.
Teacher, I have a question. Which is used for a person or just
Okay,
for
very good.
objects?
Okay, what day?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good question,
very
Paul.
good.
Both?
Actually, yes, actually, which is used for objects, but it can be also used for places. Ready? Maybe for people.
Okay.
But which is very flexible, mainly used for objects. When I say a cell phone is an object, or this is a cell phone which is really expensive, something like that. Yes, talking about objects. But I can also talk about places, especially when I say un lugar el cual. Yes, entonces I can use for places, I can use which, and I can also use where. Depending. If I use where, es un lugar donde esta cosa pasa, ¿cierto? Where the people do that. And if I use which with a place, it's un lugar el cual, and then a characteristic. For example, suppose a place which is really small, a characteristic of the place, right? Or Bogota is a city which is really big, a characteristic of the place. But I can also use where with places for talking about what happens in that place. Bogota is a city where the people are angry all the time, right? It's not a characteristic of the place, but it's something that happens in that place, which it can be also used for objects, for places, and I suppose it can be also used for people. If I say, for example, my brother is a person which, but I would say also it's better to use who with people, right? Probably, some people might use which with I mean describing people, but I wouldn't say it's correct. I would say that it's better to use who for people. Okay, Paul? Great, excellent.
Okay.
Bueno, my dear people. So far, the idea of using of talking about, like in this case, the different jobs, well, it's pretty simple, defining and not defining, but talking about the characteristics of different jobs. No, The last time we talked about some passive voice with modal verbs. Yes, I don't know if you remember, and we use it for describing processes. So we talk about that, let's say for sending a picture, the cell phone must be unlocked, Instagram should be open, right? The same structure, that same structure might be used when we want to describe city laws or ideas, right? For example, if we want to describe what some people should be requested to do or should be forced to do, yeah, I can do it also using the same structure, which is the modals in passive voice, right? In that case, what I'm going to have, it's a combination of different verbs, right? Where is that? No, it's not here.
Okay, very good.
I'm going to use, for example, should be and must be, depending if it's an obligation, no? So if it's a recommendation, should be, ought to be, would be. If it's an obligation, must, have to, have got to, yes. But remember that it's going to be the modal verb, the verb to be, and then the verb in past participle. Just that in that case, the verb in past participle is going to be one of these verbs. Forced,
See, I'm sure that we can.
requested, suggested,
I like this one.
recommended, ¿cierto? And then to, and then the verb in infinitive. So, for example, I consider that the veterinarians must be directed, or they must be requested. What is the meaning of requested, guys?
With the space, no, you just click on the letter. So you put it in bold. So, Carolina, from this.
Any idea? What is the meaning of
In
requested?
that case, it's like a solicitud, solicitado.
Exactly. Yeah, very good. So they must be requested to be kind with the animals,
Yes.
because some veterinarians, they are very rude with the animals, no? And they mistreat. Palabra nueva, mistreat. What is the meaning of mistreat? Maltratar. Ready? So some of the veterinarians mistreat their patients, the little puppies or the kitties. So I think that the veterinarians must be requested to be kind with the animals, right?
Yeah.
For example, requested because se les debe solicitar. Forced, se les debe obligar a. Suggested, se les debe sugerir, right? Entonces, I can have different kinds of verbs depending the action that I want, right? I can also use actions like, for example, wait. Y vamos a borrar este pedacito. I can use verbs like, let me just create a text chart here. Bueno, we already saw requested, we said forced, we said suggested, we say recommended, and we say obliged. What is the meaning of obliged?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What does it
I
sound like?
guess it's obligado.
Obligado, very good, Pau. Excellent. So they should be obliged, or they should be requested, they should be recommended, or they should be told, which like como se les debe mencionar o decir, right? Or they should be, what other do you think, right? Like, they should be, no, let's leave it like that. But so different actions that I can do with that person, right? So by the government or by the laws or whatever, they should be requested to do something or they should be suggested to do something, right? For example, if we talk about teachers, that is of course my profession. What do you consider that the teachers should be recommended to do or should be requested to do? Depending if it's an obligation, forced, obliged, if it's a recommendation, suggested, recommended, if it's something legal, requested to, right? If it's like an advice, told maybe, right? So what do you think? What would be the idea for improving the teacher's performance?
Yes. Very good. Nice. And the last one, number 7. What is this? Yes.
Remember that we're going to use the modal verb, then be, then the verb in past participle, which is this verb, then to, and then the
Yes.
verb in infinitive, depending what you want us to do.
Uh-huh. Good. Mm-hmm.
Help us, teacher, help us.
I like this.
For example, bueno, not talking about me,
Because
but
it
in
makes
general, do you think
me-
that the teachers are patient enough? Are they patient enough?
So say it again, Marcus.
Not everyone.
Not all the teachers, right?
Choose.
And I think that it should be, I mean, there should be an obligation of my job because I mean I'm teaching people, I'm explaining people things, and many people are not going to understand. So I consider that we, bueno, teachers, yes, teachers
Exactly.
should be request. Well, let's use other different verb, not requested. They should be forced. No, but the first, they should be advised. Advised to be more patient. Advice is a synonym of suggested, right? So this is the sugerir. So teachers should be advised to be more patient. In my conception, that's what I think. What about you? What do you think?
The teachers would be. It's okay, yeah?
Would not so much because we are not going to use would for possibility, but probably should, could, can, must, have to.
Okay, could be recommended to be more patient with their class, with the students.
Exactly. Very good. With students, right? Oh, for example, guys, do you think that the teachers are didactic enough? Do we have enough exercises, activities, or not? Are we didactic enough, or probably we could be a little bit more didactic? My little girls, what do you think, Mrs. Paola, Mrs. Juanita, Emi? Do you think that the teachers are didactic enough, or not so much? Probably we could be more didactic.
More or other teachers.
Of course. How do you say no? Se les debería pedir a los profes que fueran más didácticos.
Very good pronunciation. Nice, I love it.
Se les debería recomendar a los profes que fueran más didácticos. How could you say that?
Okay. So we have the first one. We have our first month. How do you pronounce it?
Teachers
Yes, okay.
is
Good. What is the second one?
suggested to be more didactic.
Sí, very good. Entonces, teachers, ahí puedes usar cualquier modal, ¿cierto? Ya depende si quieres que te obligación o no. Teachers must be obliged. Must be obliged, super obligatorio. They must be obliged to be more didactic, for example. So that structure is especially useful when we want to describe ideas or like changes in our society, and especially talking about our jobs, right? Because every single job is going to have a different description, and different people expect different things from the other jobs. No, for example, the students expect something from the teachers, but the directors also expect something from the teachers, and the teachers expect something from the students. For example, I consider as a teacher, I consider that students should be forbidden. Do you know what is the meaning of forbidden?
Have the same day as my mom.
Forbidden. What is the meaning of forbidden?
Yes, she has that day, and that's very fine because it's like April Fool's Day here in Colombia, and it's like very bad.
What is that? It's the same. They are synonyms. So
Prohibido.
Prohibited, of course, forbidden or prohibited, right? So in that case, I think that the students should be forbidden or they should be prohibited to watch TikTok in class. Because some of them, you are teaching and they are just watching TikTok. So I consider that students should be forbidden, se les debe prohibir que watch TikTok, right? Entonces it can be ideally, ideally used when we describe rules or ideas that we have in order to change things, ¿vale? ¿Ready? Sé que no es tan fácil, especialmente por estos verbos que no son tan normales, ¿ready? Pero con unos pocos que empecemos podemos crear muchos ejemplos, ¿vale? Se nos van ocurriendo otros en el camino. Requested, forced, suggested, recommended, obliged, told, forbidden, prohibited, advised. ¿Sí? Tenemos más o menos 10 o fine. ¿Listo? Guys, questions en esta parte, difficulties or problems en esta parte del tema como tal, lo habíamos visto en la clase pasada, pero el vocabulario especialmente de esos verbos, requested, forced, todos claros.
Las opciones.
Yes, teacher. So
Ya sabes.
wood is not an option. Another one that we couldn't use.
No, it wouldn't is not an option because we are talking about recommendation or obligation. But would is only talking about probability, right? So that's why in this case we have must, what would must have to, yes, for obligation, and should, ought to, could, can,
Okay.
for
I
exactly.
okay, teacher. Thank you.
That's it. Listen, my friends. So far, we talk about, well, how to define or give complementary information about one profession with defining and not defining clauses, and also how can we describe or give ideas about what they should do or what they shouldn't do, what the ideal profession would be, right? Now,
Very good.
we can also talk about, or the other part, it's talking about the best or the worst parts of one job, right?
Why is that?
In that case, we're going to have expressions such as the best part, well, just change the color, the best part of, the most difficult part about, the most challenging thing of, the worst part of, one of the best things of, one big challenge, one disadvantage of, one advantage of, many different possible expressions, right? But all of those expressions, they finish in preposition. Guys, I don't know if you remember, but could you tell me what happened when we have a preposition such as of, about, of, with, by, and then we have another verb? How comes the verb?
Lo mismo, my happy birthday. Pues que happy es lo que
With ing.
feliz cumpleaños.
Muy bien, Pau, very good. Después de una preposición diferente a to, puede ser for, puede ser of, about, with, el verbo va a venir en gerundio, es decir, with ing. Right? So, in that case, the best part of and the action in ing. And then, this is all of that part. Todo esto que tengo acá, all of this part, is the subject. Es una noun phrase, una oración nominal, noun phrase. O sea, que todo ese chorrero que tengo ahí solamente es el sujeto de la oración. ¿Listo? Aunque tengo un verbo en ing, realmente no es el verbo de la oración. Simplemente una acción que hace parte del sujeto, pero nada más. Then I'm going to have verb to be because it's describing what is the most difficult part of that. And then the complement. The complement, it's going to be another sentence. This is the complement in which I describe qué es lo más difícil de cierta acción. Va a ser otra acción, ¿cierto? Entonces, ¿o qué es la ventaja más grande de cierta acción? Va a ser otra acción. That sentence of words is going to be also in ing. For example, being famous. Lo vimos por allá al inicio del nivel, ¿cierto? Being famous. And then you talk about advantages and disadvantages of being famous, right? I can use, for example, that the worst part of being famous, ¿cierto? Is, pero también puedo usar can be, could be, might be, was, were, will be, dependiendo mi opción, dependiendo mi intención. Si yo quiero decir que la mejor parte, o la peor parte, perdón, de ser famoso puede ser, pues can be o could be. Sería, would be. ¿cierto? La peor parte de ese famoso es, pues, is o are, ¿cierto? Entonces, dependiendo mi opción, mi intención, puedo usar cualquier forma del verb to be. Ready? So I'm going to say, for example, that the worst part of being famous is, I don't know, leading with, no, leading, no, facing, dealing with, más bien, dealing with paparazzis. Paparazzis, right? What is the meaning of dealing with? Dealing with, what is that?
Como lidiar.
Muy bien, Pau, excelente, excelente vocabulario, baby. So, dealing with, muy bien. Entonces, the worst part of being famous, de ser famoso, es dealing with paparazzis, right? So, noten que en ambos casos son dos oraciones en gerundio unidas, conectadas con un simple verb to be, right? El sujeto es un gerundio, el complemento es un gerundio, ¿cierto? Claro, puedo finalmente usar o no usar un gerundio. Es decir, puedo decir, por ejemplo, the worst part of being famous is paparazzis. Y ya está, ¿cierto? Recuerden que esos verbos con gerundio puede usarse el verbo con el complemento o realmente solo el complemento, ¿sí? Entonces depende. En este caso, por ejemplo, no puedo quitar el gerundio, porque no puedo decir la peor parte de famoso, ¿no? La peor parte de ser famoso es lidiar con los paparazzis o simplemente es los paparazzis. That's it, right? Pero tengan en cuenta que son dos oraciones con gerundio. Una después de preposición, la otra después de verb to be, para usar como complemento. ¿Ok? I would like you to tell me, well, do you have like different jobs in your mind? Some want to be a doctor, some want to work in a bilingual job, yes? Uh, One is a pastoral assistant, the other one, Emily, I don't remember what she wants to study, but well, anyway, think on your job, on your ideal job, and tell me what is the worst part. What is one disadvantage of that? Yes. So I could use the worst part or one big challenge of, como un gran desafío, or the most challenging part, or the most difficult, something negative about that job. And what is that part? So think about it and tell me when you're right. Tell me.
Maybe the worst part mm, of working in a call center is dealing with the angry customers.
Excellent. Excellent, Paul. And yeah, probably that is the most difficult part. Good, excellent. So the most difficult part of working for a call center is dealing with the angry customers. Muy bien, that's a difficult part. Good. Excellent, Paul. What else, my dear Juanita, Emily, John? What do you think?
Very good.
The best part of being a pastoral assistant is working with people. I don't know. Maybe could be.
Yes, of course. But that was the best part, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, I was asking like a negative aspect.
Is not working. Maybe is the correct word should be
So,
helping people.
Okay, very good. That could also count. Okay.
And a negative sentence, yes?
Yeah,
The
like something that you don't like about that job.
Hmm. I think like the best part and the worst part could be uh, the best part of being a pastoral assistant is dealing with bad people with bad temperament.
So that's yes. Excellent. So dealing with people with bad temper or temperamental people, right? Muy bien, very good. Excellent. Juanita, I mean, what do you think about it?
The worst part of working in international relations is not resolving conflict.
Oof, of course. Well, this is in this moment, that is the clear example of that, no? So the worst part of working with international relations is not solving the conflicts. It has bad implications, no? Muy bien, very good. And my dear Juanita, what do you think about it?
Okay, I have one. One of the best things about studying medicine is learning about body.
Perfect. But one of the best parts of studying, not student, but studying medicine is learning about the body. Perfect, Juanita. Great. Ready, guys? So, well, basically, in this week number 8, the idea was talking about our jobs, our dreams, our accomplishments so far. Given that you just graduated from school, that you are not working, so well, we didn't speak so much about the jobs last time, but we did talk about your accomplishments, about all your life, and also the goals that you have for the future, right? Which was also part of the goal. And now in this class, we could talk about a little bit more about our jobs and describing them and what a streamer does and what a kind of person does, and also describing what we should be recommended to do as a streamer. I suppose that the streamers must be obliged to control the content that they of their streaming sessions. Yes. So in that case, giving ideas, giving recommendations, giving descriptions about the jobs, and finally describing good aspects and bad aspects of them. Right? We use a lot of different topics, relative clauses, simple past, present perfect, future perfect, and now in this case, gerunds, and especially here, double gerunds, because we have one gerund at the beginning and one gerund at the end. And that was it, right? So that was the week number 8. Guys, remember that the next week, we're going to have one class, and it's the class of the week number 1 of intermediate 2. But for starting intermediate 2, you gotta finish intermediate 1 first, ready? So don't forget to complete activities of week number 8, checkpoint 7 and 8, and final checkpoint, right? So you can start the next week with a intermediate number 2. So, ready? Questions about it? Questions about the activities, about the how to pass to the next subject, or it's fine?
It's fine, teacher.
Teacher, we need como un puntaje mínimo para pasar.
Yes, 80, my dear. 80. Tanto en el,
¿En todo o en el checkpoint?
las dos, tanto en el checkpoint final, para que se active la encuesta de final, tienes que tener 80 en el checkpoint final. Y para que, o sea, los 3 requisitos para pasar de nivel son que tengas 80 en el checkpoint final, que desarrolles la encuesta de satisfacción y que la nota general del curso sea también de 80. ¿Listo? Recuerden que cuando ustedes están en su plataforma, ahí arribita dice progreso de clase. Apenas ustedes entran a progreso de clase, debajo de su nombre les va a aparecer cuánto es la nota que tienen hasta el momento. ¿Listo? Porque si ustedes entran a calificación, hay un pedacito que dice como ponderación, pero esa no es la nota. Eso es solamente como el porcentaje de calificaciones que han tenido. Pero entran a Class Progress, ahí arriba en la franja roja dice Class Progress, y en esa, debajo de su nombre a mano izquierda, les va a aparecer el puntaje o la calificación actual total del curso. ¿Listo?
Great teacher.
Bueno, guys. Listo, my dear people. So, see you the next week. Espero que logren terminar todas las actividades para que podamos empezar desde la semana 1 la siguiente semana. Y ya, nada, que lo pasen bien, que pasen buen fin de semana, que descansen, que duerman y nos vemos la otra semanita. O eso espero, ¿right?
Thank you, teacher.
Bye, mister.
Bye
Chao,
bye.
guys. Que les vaya bien. Goodbye.
Sí.